Imagine being 17 years old, doing your A-level homework on top of a washing machine. Not because you thought it was cool, but because it was the only warm, quiet place you could find. No bedroom, no desk, no stable home, just the hum of spinning drums and flickering fluorescent lights. This is the true story of Aiden, a teenager who refused to let his circumstances write his ending. And what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. But before we get there, you need to understand just how bad things really were. Aiden lived with his mum, Sara, and his younger sister Nadia, who was just 10 years old. His father had left when Aiden was 14, walked out without a word, leaving Sara to work 2 jobs just to keep the family afloat. They moved between temporary accommodations constantly. Council flats, a friend's sofa, a single room in a shared house. Stability was a word Aiden had stopped believing in. But he never let Nadia see him cry. He was her big brother. He had to be strong, even when he was breaking. And yet, even through all of this, Aiden held on to one thing. The one thing they couldn't take from him. It was October, freezing cold, when Aiden first pushed open the door of the 24-hour laundromat on Brunswick Street. He hadn't come to wash clothes. He had come because the library had closed, their shared room had no heating, and his mum was working the night shift. The laundromat was warm. It was open. And at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, it was almost completely empty. He sat on a plastic chair, pulled out his chemistry textbook, and started studying. That was the night everything changed. What happened inside those walls over the next few months, nobody could have predicted. Aiden started coming every night, 9 p.m. to midnight, sometimes later. He picked the same corner seat, furthest from the door, closest to the dryers, because the heat was best there. He created a system, homework first, then revision, then reading ahead. He used the laundromat's free Wi-Fi to research university courses. He downloaded past papers. He made flashcards. While other teenagers were scrolling social media, Aiden was building a routine that most adults couldn't maintain. Discipline became his superpower, not because it was easy, but because he had no other choice. But the laundromat wasn't just a study space. It became something much more unexpected. There were regulars. Margaret, a 68-year-old retired nurse who came every Wednesday evening and always offered Aiden a biscuit from her tin. Mr. Patel, who ran the dry cleaning shop next door and sometimes let Aiden charge his phone behind the counter. And then there was Danny, a 19-year-old who dropped out of college and came to the laundromat to avoid going home. They became unlikely friends. Danny saw something in Aiden he hadn't seen in a long time, somebody who hadn't given up. And slowly, Danny started picking up books too. Because here's what Aiden didn't know yet. Someone else had been watching him study for weeks. The laundromat was owned by a woman named Gloria, a Jamaican-British woman in her 50s who managed the place remotely but came in for checks twice a week. One Tuesday, she arrived at 10,000 p.m. and found Aiden hunched over a physics problem, muttering equations under his breath. She watched him for a few minutes. Then she walked over and said quietly, "You're here every night." Aiden froze, thinking he was about to be told to leave. Instead, Gloria pulled up a chair and asked him one question that would change everything. What are you working towards? What Aiden told her, and what she did next, is the part of this story nobody expected. Aiden had never told a stranger about his life, but something about the way Gloria asked, not with pity, but with genuine curiosity, broke through his walls. He told her everything: the absent father, the moving around, his mum working double shifts, Nadia. The fact that he was applying to study medicine because he wanted to make sure nobody in his family ever had to worry about healthcare bills again. Gloria listened without interrupting. When he finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, "That's the most honest thing I've heard in years." And then she made him an offer he almost said no to. Gloria told Aiden she'd convert the back storage room into a proper study space, a desk, a lamp, a heater, a chair that didn't hurt his back. In exchange, he'd help her with the laundromat's simple bookkeeping a few nights a week, something his math skills made easy. "You don't have to sit out here in the cold corner anymore," she said. Aiden almost refused. He was proud. He didn't want charity. But Gloria stopped him before he could speak. "This isn't charity, this is a deal, and deals are between equals." He shook her hand that night. But the study room was just the beginning, because what happened 2 months later shook everyone. With a proper desk and a warm space, Aiden's studying went to another level. He started averaging 4 to 5 hours of focused revision a night after school. His teachers noticed. One called his mum to say Aiden had submitted the best chemistry essay she'd seen from a student in 6 years. Another nominated him for a regional science competition. For the first time in years, teachers were telling Sara good news about her son. She cried on the phone. Aiden didn't know she'd cried, but Nadia told him later, and it stayed with him forever. But just as things were looking up, life hit Aiden with its hardest blow yet. In January, Sara had an accident at work, a slip on a wet floor at the hotel where she cleaned. She fractured her wrist and was signed off work for 6 weeks. No income, bills piling up, the landlord threatening them with notice. Aiden faced a decision that no 17-year-old should have to make: drop school, get a job, and help the family survive, or keep studying and risk everything falling apart. He lay on the laundromat floor that night, staring at the ceiling while the machines spun around him. He didn't sleep. What he decided to do next took courage that most adults never find in a lifetime. Aiden decided he would do both. He took a weekend job at a supermarket, 14 hours across Saturday and Sunday, and kept his school week untouched. He cut his sleep to 5 hours. He stopped eating lunch at school to save money. Gloria found out and quietly started leaving food in the study room. "Forgot it here," she'd say, pretending it was accidental. Danny helped cover 2 of Aiden's laundromat bookkeeping shifts. For those 6 weeks, an entire community rallied around a boy who had never asked for help, because he'd never had to. He'd always carried it alone. And then, from completely out of nowhere, an envelope arrived that changed everything. It was a Tuesday evening in March when Gloria called Aiden out of the study room and handed him an envelope with a university crest on it. It wasn't his A-level results, those were months away. It was an early invitation to interview for a scholarship program, one of only 50 places nationwide for students from disadvantaged backgrounds applying to study medicine. Someone had nominated him anonymously. To this day, Aiden doesn't know for certain who it was. But if you looked at Gloria's face when he opened it, her eyes were already wet before he read the first line. The interview was in London, and he almost didn't go. The train to London cost $47 return, money Aiden didn't have. He checked his bank balance 3 times, hoping it would somehow change. It didn't. He told no one. The night before the interview, Gloria found him staring at his phone calculator in the laundromat. She didn't say a word. She just placed an envelope on his desk and left the room. Inside was exactly 50. "A loan," she'd written. "Pay me back when you're a doctor." Aiden pressed the envelope to his chest and sat there in silence for a long time. Some kindnesses are too big for words. The interview itself? That's where this story gets truly unbelievable. The scholarship interview panel consisted of 3 people: a senior professor of medicine, a hospital consultant, and a representative from the Scholarship Foundation. They asked Aiden the standard questions first, about his academic interests, his motivations. Then the professor leaned forward and asked, "Tell us something about yourself that isn't on your application." Aiden was quiet for 3 full seconds. Then he said, "I've been studying in a laundromat for the past 8 months." The room went completely still. "Tell us more," the consultant said. And for the next 12 minutes, Aiden talked, and the panel forgot to take notes. What one of the panelists said to him as he left the room stopped him dead in his tracks. As Aiden gathered his things to leave the interview room, one of the panelists, the hospital consultant, a woman who had said very little throughout, stopped him at the door. She said, "I've been doing this for 11 years. In all that time, I've interviewed one other candidate who studied the way you did, with nothing and no excuses. He's now a consultant cardiologist at St. Thomas's. I just wanted you to know that." Aiden walked out of the building, turned the corner, sat on a bench, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he cried, not from sadness, from relief. 3 weeks later, the results came. And what happened next, nobody expected. Aiden received the scholarship offer on a Friday morning, a full-funded place for a 6-year medicine program at one of the UK's top universities, covering tuition and providing a living stipend. He didn't scream, he didn't post it on social media. He called his mum first. Sara dropped the phone. He heard her calling for Nadia in the background. Then he walked to the laundromat, showed Gloria the letter, and sat down at his desk, the same desk she'd built for him in that storage room. He opened his textbook and kept studying. Some people celebrate loudly. Aiden celebrated by becoming someone worthy of the win. But the story doesn't end with the scholarship. What Aiden did next showed his true character. Before he left for university in September, Aiden did something nobody asked him to do. He approached Gloria and asked if they could turn the back study room into a proper free study space for local young people. Open 3 nights a week, no questions asked, just a warm place to work. Gloria said yes immediately. Together they put up a small sign on the door, "The study room, free, for anyone who needs it." Within 3 weeks, 7 young people from the area were using it regularly. 2 of them were applying to university for the first time in their families. And one of those 7 people, their story is even harder to believe than Aiden's. The night before Aiden left for university, he came to the laundromat one last time. He sat in his old corner seat, the one he'd used before the study room existed. He looked at the machines spinning. He thought about that first night in October, cold and alone, with nowhere else to go. He pulled out a blank piece of paper and wrote a letter to whoever might sit in that chair after him. He tucked it behind the seat cushion. The letter said, "If you're here because you have nowhere else to go, you're in the right place. Keep going. The machines will keep you warm." Nobody knew he'd left that letter, until 3 months later someone found it and posted it online. A young woman named Priya found the letter 3 months after Aiden had left. She was 16, studying for her GCSEs, sleeping on her aunt's sofa after her parents separated. She photographed it and posted it on social media with the caption, "Found this in a laundromat. Whoever you are, thank you." It was shared 30,000 times in 48 hours. News outlets picked it up. Someone tracked down the laundromat. Gloria gave one interview. She wouldn't name Aiden. "His story is his to tell," she said. "He doesn't need my permission to have changed the world already." Eventually, Aiden found out. And what he chose to do with the attention is the final lesson of this entire story. Aiden is now in his 2nd year of medical school. He still calls Gloria every Sunday. Nadia is doing brilliantly at school. His mum has one job now, a better one. And Aiden has one rule he lives by, that he says came from all those nights in the laundromat: your environment is not your destiny. Your discipline is. He doesn't have a massive social media following. He didn't sell his story. He just kept going. And that, more than the scholarship, more than the letter, more than any of it, is the reason his story deserves to be told. Because the world needs more proof that quiet determination still wins.